This is Wahusama, and on this channel I talk illustrations and animation in digital. If this content interests you, please subscribe, hit the notification button so you're notified when I upload new content. In today's video, we take a look at coloring a clean line art. Also, if you haven't watched the sketching and the line art videos that I made before, I will leave a link in the description and you can go to them, watch them, see how the sketches are made, and then come back to this one for coloring. If you already know how to do the sketches and the line art, there's no need, and we can proceed with the video. So let's open Photoshop and get right into it. Okay, so now our sketch looks like this. We did it previously, and it's a simple sketch of somebody running. So we want to color this sketch in two ways. The first way is by using the paint bucket tool. Also, it uses a different kind of sketch, a different kind of line art, and that's a uniform line art that we made before. It uses this kind of line art that has uniform strokes. As you can see, my strokes are uniform. So by using clean line art, paint bucket, a paint bucket can be accessed by G on your keyboard, or by coming to the tool section and getting to the family that has the gradient, the paint bucket, and the 3D material drop tool. So we want to pick the paint bucket tool, and here we are. So how does it work? The paint bucket tool will work by applying paint in enclosed areas. So areas enclosed by some lines, so basically lines, will have the same color when you click on the paint bucket with the color of your choice. So what do I mean? Let's go to our hue cube here, pick a color, just any color, then click once. That's it. You have this section of the sketch painted already with the shade that you took. So what are the different settings for this? The different settings are up here, whether the tolerance is 3, the figure for tolerance, and by this we mean by how far it should get to the enclosed areas. So by experiment, if we take it up to say 200 and then do the same, you see now it spills over to our line art. So if you have a similar problem, what you need to do is you reduce the tolerance to around to a friendly figure. So I'm working with 3. You could also work with 3. And let's go. Now when you paint, it's enclosed within this area. What is the other problem you might have? The other problem is when you put this tolerance at a very low figure and then you click once. Let's see what happens. If you zoom in on your canvas, your own canvas, you will see that it does not get to the ends of the pixels. So we have this halo around our line art that is left out because the tolerance, the value of our tolerance is very low. So how do you solve this? You can solve it by tapping a number of times, and then it will go away, but you'll still have a few areas here. Or you can solve it by raising the figure to a slightly higher one. So let's proceed. This is how you paint. You simply tap on the areas you want the paint over. And it works this way. Pick another color. You do not need to zoom in and out as I'm doing. This is my personal choice. Okay, so here we are after using our paint bucket tool. What is the con of this method? The con of this method is that it does not work in areas that are open. For instance, the eyeball area, this one was supposed to be white, but because it is not enclosed, this paint spilled over into our eyeball. Another problem you will have is the very small pixels will not be accessed or will not be filled. For instance, these small pixels, the small pixels around the pupil. Let's move on using our second sketch, our second line art, and use a different kind of method to color it in. So this is our line art 2. Let's duplicate this. This is our second method. We will not use a paint bucket. We will use a combination of a paint bucket and a brush tool, but largely the brush tool going into the finer areas of the sketch. So for line art 2, you right click on it and then choose duplicate layer, and then you have the two layers here. What you need to do is you select the lower layer. So I have these two, they are identical. You select the lower layer, and then let's get going with a combination of the paint bucket tool and the brush tool. So why the combination? It is because the brush will get into the areas that the paint bucket will not. So remember we are painting on the lower layer, do not confuse. And if you want to keep safer by not painting on the top layer, click the top layer and click on this padlock icon up here so that the layer is locked and will not be able to paint on it. And then you come back here, the lower layer, pick a paint bucket. So let's use a paint bucket and proceed as we were doing the first method. So you color the large areas that can take in paint by the bucket tool. Now, at this stage, now that we are done with the paint bucket tool, and we have some areas that we want to do some precise work on them, like close to the pupils, as was the problem with the first sketch, with the first coloring. So the next step now is to pick a brush tool. So our brush tool here, pick a brush tool, change some settings. I want to give it 100% hardness. I'm using a soft round brush, and if I change the hardness to 100%, it becomes a hard brush. And then I pick a pressure sensitivity, I select that. Also, if you're wondering what the settings are for the brush, there is a link to the video on brush settings, the basic brush settings in Photoshop. You might want to check it out. With our brush selected, now we can pick a color of our choice and then paint over. Not a color of our choice, but for this case we are doing white, for the whites of the eye. And then pick another color depending with your own choice now. Color your pupil. Color your pupil like that. You may want to add some white if you so wish, and select the same black that you used here, and then go into the areas that did not receive paint with the bucket tool. So at this point you need to zoom in and out so you do not miss on the areas that did not receive any paint. Also, now that our character has some white on the background, we might want to paint our background a different color, so we can check which areas do not have paint. So let's pick a paint bucket tool and select our background layer, and like that. And as you can see, our character is all painted. So this is it about coloring in digital art. We have looked at two ways. We have looked at the paint bucket, and the second method is paint bucket plus the brush tool, and this is for the areas that do not receive paint when you use paint bucket. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section. Also, like and share this video to others, and see you in the next one.